Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm John M. Hawkins. You're listening to My Strategy, and we're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today. My Strategy episodes are on Saturdays. They are live at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today, we're going to be talking about assertive people get what they want. In this episode, I'm going to talk about assertiveness as a practical communication skill. Learning to stand up for yourself, way to communicate your position, being assertive when under stress, and gaining confidence. We'd love to take your calls later in the show. The studio number is 866-451-1451. And if you send us an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com, that's talk@johnmhawkins.com, you can be entered into the weekly giveaway. Well, happy to be here today. Saturday is a great day of the week to reflect, but keep in mind that any day really is a good time to assess your strategy. Our show is about personal development, and it is growing. We're now available on iHeart, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, and many more digital platforms. You can go there to listen to any of our past episodes. You can find me on social media at Hawkins John, or find me on my website at johnmhawkins.com. And just like anything in life, we need to have a strategy and a plan to help us reach our goal, because the best laid plans don't always work. And this week, I'm looking for stories on assertiveness. Do you have any good examples, a tip or a trick that you'd like to share with us? If you send them to the show at talk@johnmhawkins.com, those too can be entered as a way to enter into our weekly giveaway, where you can be eligible for our prize package, which includes a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness, and also a Visa gift card. All right, so today we're talking about assertive people get what they want, and today's show is all about being assertive. It is a social skill that relies on effective communication. We're going to talk about communication wants, needs, boundaries, and positions. Talk a little bit about what is assertiveness and why it is so important to have. Being assertive can help reduce stress. Why be assertive? Assertive versus passive behavior. Assertive versus aggressive behavior. There's a fine line between those. We're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about how to learn to become more assertive if you are not assertive enough today. But keeping in mind that being assertive is not always appropriate, so we need to know when to use it. Also going to learn how some powerful habits to make you more assertive. Understand it a little bit better, understanding and accepting the differences. Speak simply, the power of I. And as usual, we are going to develop a strategy for us to develop our own assertiveness. So today is all about being assertive and assertiveness. Assertiveness is a social skill that relies heavily on effective communication. And I'm taking this from an article from Psychology Today. It says, while simultaneously respecting the thoughts and wishes of other, people who are assertive clearly and respectfully communicate their wants, needs, positions, and boundaries. There's no question of where they stand, no matter what the topic. From a cognitive standpoint, assertive people experience fewer anxious thoughts, even when under stress. From a behavioral standpoint, assertive people are firm without being rude. They react to positive and negative emotions without becoming aggressive or resorting to passivity. Individuals who are high in assertiveness don't shy away from defending their points of view or goals, or from trying to influence others to see their side. They're also open to both compliments and constructive criticism. Assertiveness is often associated with higher self-esteem and confidence. People can improve their assertiveness through practical exercises and experience. Well, after that, who wouldn't want to be more assertive? Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Got an article here from a group that actually is talking a little bit about assertiveness, and this has to do with independent living. It's from Mountain State, which is a company that provides independent living. And the reason I am talking about this article today is because it looks at it from a different perspective. It's for those who are not assertive, and they might not be assertive for a number of reasons, but they give some good tips, and so I want to go through them. They say, what is assertiveness and why be assertive? To assert, state an opinion, claim a right, or establish authority. If you assert yourself, you behave in a way that expresses your confidence, importance of power, and earn your respect from others. Assertiveness is standing up for your right to be treated fairly. It is expressing your opinions, needs, and feelings without ignoring or hurting the opinions, needs, and feelings of others. I think that's a key point there. We're going to noodle on that a little bit later in the show because people want to be liked or thought of as nice or easy to get along with. They often keep their opinions to themselves, especially if those opinions conflict with other people's. All you people pleasers out there. But asserting yourself will stop others from cheating you and you from cheating yourself out of what you deserve. It says assertive behavior includes starting, changing, or ending conversations, sharing feelings, opinion, experience with others, making requests, asking for favors, refusing others' requests if they're too demanding, questioning rules or traditions that don't make sense or don't seem fair, addressing problems or things that bother you, being firm so that your rights are respected. I also talk a little bit about assertiveness with respect to health care. I say you have the right to ask questions. You can ask for a second opinion, talk to a doctor or nurse or counselor about a diagnosis. Get a second opinion. Refuse treatment or seek alternative treatment. Stay informed. How many times do you go to a doctor and just accept exactly what that doctor has said, even though it might not seem like the proper diagnosis? You trust the authority figure, you trust who they are, but should you be more assertive in that situation? What about at work and at school with regard to equal opportunity? No matter what your race, gender, or abilities, the law guarantees you equal access to jobs and education. You cannot be turned down for a job or be rejected from a school simply based on physical attributes. Equal rewards. Shouldn't you have the same rewards as others in a similar position? Family and friends. Sometimes asserting oneself around people that you care for can be harder to do than someone else in your life. Also, equal treatment. You deserve to be treated the same as other family members and friends when it comes to responsibilities, but also the rewards and respect. Just like everywhere else in your life, you deserve to be treated with respect. While family members and other friends may be casual around each other, that's part of the comfort that comes with their friendship. If their actions or behaviors offend or hurt your feelings, you have the right to tell them and ask them to change those behaviors. Assertive versus unassertiveness and aggressive behavior. We're going to talk a little bit about that after the break. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we return, we're going to talk about being assertive and how it can reduce your stress. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. The show is called My Strategy. It is on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. All our shows are live. This episode, we're talking about assertive people get what they want. Talking about assertiveness as a practical communication skill, standing up for yourself, ways to communicate your position, being assertive under stress, and gaining confidence. Love to take your phone calls later in the show. The number is 866-451-1451. Or send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. And if you send in an email, you'll be automatically entered to win a chance to win our weekly giveaway. Right before the break, we were talking about all about assertiveness, what it is, why it's important. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about being assertive and how it can help you reduce stress. Got an article here by the Mayo Clinic. It's under their healthy lifestyles category here, stress management. It says being assertive reduces stress and can help you communicate better. Who doesn't want to have less stress? Being assertive is a core communication skill. Being assertive means that you express yourself effectively, stand up for your point of view while also respecting the rights and beliefs of others. Being assertive can also help boost your self-esteem and earn others' respect. This can help with stress management, especially if you tend to take on too many responsibilities because you have a hard time saying no. We did do a whole podcast on saying no. You can find that on my website, or you can Google it and find it. It says some people seem to be naturally assertive. But what if you're not one of them? They say here that you can learn to be more assertive. They talk a little bit about why assertive communication makes sense. They said it's based on mutual respect. It's effective and a diplomatic communication style. Being assertive shows that you respect yourself because you're willing to stand up for your interests and express your thoughts and feelings. It also demonstrates that you're aware of the rights of others and are also willing to work on resolving conflicts. I think this is really important in today's political climate. I'm not going to go into the politics aspect of it. But regardless of your position, you should feel empowered, and you do have a right to express your opinion, and you should have the ability to not be put down for what you believe. If you have a belief, it is important for everyone to at least respect your position and have a dialogue. And I think this is one of those things, one of the reasons why assertive communication resonated with me. It says, of course, it's not just what you say, your message, but also how you say it. Assertive communication is direct, respectful, because assertiveness gives you the best chance of successfully delivering your message. They do talk about some of the subtle nuances of assertive behavior and how there's a difference between being assertive and your passive behavior. It says if your style is passive, you may seem to shy away or be overly easygoing. You may routinely say things like, oh, I'll just go with whatever the group decides. You tend to avoid conflicts. Why is this a problem? It says because the message you're sending is that your thoughts and feelings aren't as important. They are not as important as those of other people. In essence, you are too passive. You give others the license to disregard your wants and needs. Is that you? Do you fall into that category? If you're too passive, it says here that this internal conflict can lead to stress, resentment, seething anger, feeling of victimization, desire to exact revenge. Those aren't very positive. So we do want to be thinking about this. Are we too passive or not? What about assertive versus aggressive behavior? They say now consider the flip side. If your style is aggressive, you may come across as a bully. You disregard the needs and feelings and opinions of others. You may appear self-righteous, superior. Very aggressive people humiliate and intimidate others and may be physically threatening. You may link that being aggressive gets you, you may think that being aggressive gets you what you want. However, it comes at a cost. Aggression undercuts trust and mutual respect. Others may come to resent you, leading them to avoid or oppose you. Well, that doesn't sound like a good position to be in. So there's a fine line here. There's a nuance between being passive, being assertive, being aggressive. Assertive versus passive-aggressive behavior. They say now consider a passive-aggressive behavior. If you communicate in a passive-aggressive manner, you may say yes when you want to say no. You may be sarcastic or complain about others behind their backs rather than confront an issue directly. You may show your angers and feelings through your actions or negative attitude. You may have developed a passive-aggressive style because you're uncomfortable being direct about your needs and feelings. It says, what are the drawbacks of passive-aggressive communication style? Over time, passive-aggressive behavior damages relationships and undercuts mutual respect, thus making it difficult for you to get your goals and needs met. A lot of different options here. Passive, aggressive, assertive. And they talk a little bit about what are some of these benefits of being assertive. They said being assertive is usually viewed as a healthier communication style. Being assertive offers many benefits. It helps you keep people from walking all over you. It can also help you from steamrolling others. The benefits include gain self-confidence and esteem, understanding and recognizing your feelings, earn respect from others, improve communication, create win-win, improve your decision-making skills, create honest relationships, gain more job satisfaction. Again, this is according to the Mayo Clinic. And then talk a little bit about ways that you can learn to become more assertive. And as I think about this, and I think about all the various communication styles, it's important for us to assess where we are. Where are you today? Be honest with yourself. Are you passive? Do you just go with the flow and let people do what they want to do and agree with them? Are you aggressive? Too aggressive, perhaps? Or are you in a situation where you're passive-aggressive and you say yes, but actually mean no? I think these are all important. And it's important for us to start to figure out what is our current communication style, because the only way that we can change and transform is to know where we are. And once we've identified where we are and determine our future state, we can create a plan of action to get there. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to learn how to become more assertive. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Today we're talking about assertive people get what they want. Right before the break, we were talking about learning to be more assertive. Or actually, we're going to talk about that now. Right before the break, we were talking about some of the different types of communication skills, passive, aggressive, and passive-aggressive. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about learning to become more assertive, assuming there are lots of benefits, which we're identifying now. But also, being assertive is not always inappropriate behaviors. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Got an article here, which is by Mind Tools, which is a pretty good website, and they have a lot of interesting information on personal development, values, and communication styles, and pretty much anything you can think of. And I go to it quite frequently for ideas and also to get a different position. It says here, asking for what you want firmly and fairly, how to be assertive. It says, Deborah's patience is beginning to wear thin with her colleague, Ronan. A few days earlier, he had undermined her yet again, this time in front of her colleagues during the weekly team meeting. So she decided to tell him how he made her feel. But just as she was about to approach him, she lost her nerve. Ronan made similar comments again yesterday, and once again Deborah felt humiliated and frustrated at her inability to see the effect of his comments had. But she couldn't bring herself to speak to him. She feels cross with herself, but resigned to the situation. It's possible that you've been in a situation like Deborah's, and like her, you might have felt unable to do anything. But by learning how to be more assertive, you can stand up for yourself and become a strong and confident communicator. So it's one thing for us to talk about being assertive and how great it is and how easy it is to learn how to do it, but it's another thing when you are face-to-face with somebody who may intimidate you and who has been talking to you in a belittling way and humiliate you. How do you stand up to that person? That's part of what we're trying to figure out to do today. They talk a little bit here about what is assertiveness, and I think we got a good grasp on it. And as they say here, it's not easy to identify truly assertive behavior. They said because there's a fine line between assertiveness and aggression. We learned about that in the prior segment with the article from the Mayo Clinic. They do point out something quite interesting here, and I tweeted this a little bit earlier today. Assertiveness is based on balance. It requires forthright about your wants and needs while considering the rights and needs and wants of others. When you are assertive, you are self-assured and draw power from this to get your point across firmly, fairly, and with empathy. So firmly, fairly, and with empathy. Now, Deborah might have been feeling like she was picked on by Ronan with those comments, but how does she respond? How does Deborah respond firmly, fairly, and with empathy? But she shouldn't come across as aggressive. That wouldn't look good. She doesn't want to be passive-aggressive, as maybe she is now, where she's just seething and upset by all these comments and not doing anything about it. And she doesn't want to seem as being passive. So that's the fine line of what we're trying to figure out. It says aggressive behavior is based on winning. You do what is in your best interest without the regards for rights, needs, feelings, or desires of other people. When you're aggressive, the power you use is selfishness. You may come across as pushy or bullying. You take what you want, often without asking. So a boss who places a pile of work on your desk the afternoon before you go on vacation and demands that it gets done right away is being aggressive. The work needs to be done, but dumping it on you at an inappropriate time, he or she is disregarding your needs and feelings. When you, on the other hand, inform your boss that the work will be done, but only after you return from vacation, you hit the sweet spot between passivity, not being assertive enough, and aggression, being hostile, angry, or rude. You assert your rights while recognizing your boss's need to get the job done. It says, warning, assertive behavior may not be appropriate in all workplaces. Some organizations and cultures may prefer people to be more passive and may view assertive behavior as rude or even offensive. So that comes into the cultural appropriateness of being assertive. While we're teaching you today about being assertive and the benefits of it, it may not be appropriate in every culture, and that's where you really need to understand the culture with which you are in and respond accordingly. There's other ways that you can get your point across without being assertive, keeping in mind that if you are in a situation where you can't be assertive and you feel that the culture isn't right for you, and I'm talking about organizational culture. It could be an organization, it could be a company, a firm, it could be where you live. You always have the right to change your organizational culture by moving on to an organization that supports how you believe. It says research also suggested that gender can have a bearing on how assertive behavior is perceived, with men more likely to be rewarded for being assertive than women. So it pays to consider the context in which you work before you start changing your behavior. I think this is a good point here. There are lots of benefits of being assertive, but again, it's one communication style. Not everybody has to be assertive. It's a tool in your tool belt that you choose to use or not. The key is, when do we use being assertive and when do we do not? They talk a little bit about the benefits of being assertive, such as making great managers. Things get done by treating people with fairness and respect, and treating others and are treated by others the same way in return. Helpful for when you want to negotiate a win-win solution. Are better doers and problem solvers because they feel empowered to do whatever it takes to find the best solution to the problems they encounter. We can also call them proactive. They're less anxious and stressed. They're self-assured and do not feel threatened or victimized when things don't go as planned or expected. I think these are a couple of key topics here. Maybe we'll talk about them in another show, but threatened or victimized. When you're in a situation when you feel like you're being the victim and you start to play the victim, you're not in a sense of power. You are not in a position where you can take control. So it's very important for us to start to be aware of that and then come up with some strategies to help us change our communication style. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about powerful habits that can make you more assertive. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. You're listening to My Strategy. Today we're talking about assertive people and how they get what they want. If you're just joining us, we're talking about assertiveness as a practical communication skill, standing up for yourself, a way to communicate your position, being assertive under stress, and gaining confidence. There's still time to get your thoughts in and get entered into the weekly giveaway, so you can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com, and if we get your email in the next 30 minutes, you could have a chance at winning a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness, and also a Visa gift card. We're talking about learning to be more assertive. And in this segment, I want to talk a little bit about some habits that you can develop to make yourself more assertive. Got an article here by Lolly Daskell. You can find her at Lolly Daskell, or at Lolly Daskell on Twitter. She says, being assertive and knowing what you want is not the same as being hostile or belligerent. You just have to know what to say with confidence. She says everybody wants to be more confident, but not everyone knows how to be more assertive. Assertiveness falls right between passive and aggressive. If you're passive about voicing your opinion, you may come across as submissive. If you're aggressive with your viewpoint, you may come across as hostile, or even worse, a bully. But if you learn to be assertive, you can express yourself without being passive or aggressive. And you'll have a better chance of getting what you want. She gives us 7 tips. Number 1, she says, understand assertiveness. Assertiveness is an interpersonal skill in which you demonstrate healthy confidence to stand up for yourself while still respecting the rights of others. When you're assertive, you are neither passive nor aggressive, but direct and honest. You don't expect other people to know what you want. You speak up to ask for what you need, calmly and with confidence. So understanding assertiveness. I think it's important to understand assertiveness since there is a nuance, and assertiveness is somewhere, according to Lolly, in between passive and aggressive. So it really is a skill, and it's something that takes practice like any skill. Number 2, she says, keep your communication style in line. When it comes to being assertive, communication style is critical, and the key is to be respectful of those with whom you are trying to communicate. And this is important here. She says, pay attention to your body language as well as the words you say, and make sure you're congruent in your words, body language, and tone. Never expect people to read your mind. If you want something, say so. If something bothers you, speak up. Look confident when making a request or stating a preference. Stand up straight, lean a little bit in, smile or keep a natural facial expression, and look the person in the eye. Some good ideas. Of course, body language is always hard. That's something that we don't think about a lot. And when you're in a conversation, other people pick up on it, but it's hard for us to know what messages we are communicating. So think about your body language. She says, understand and accept differences. Assertiveness doesn't mean being dismissive of other people's points of view. Just as you state your own opinion, you need to work to understand the other person's point of view. Don't allow differences to upset you or get you angry. I think that's important. And to truly accept differences, we need to be good active listeners. We have a podcast on active listening. You can go back and listen to that one. But it is important for us to be in a position of openness, willing to accept somebody else for who they are, know that they are different, and have different opinions. They have different beliefs, different views. Learn to understand them. Speak simply and directly. When you're practicing assertiveness, it's important to speak up in a way that doesn't imply accusations or make a person feel guilty. Speaking the truth with candor shouldn't mean making others feel wrong. Be simple, direct, and concise, and state what you know to be true for you. When asserting yourself, remember less is more. Keep your requests free of meandering or long-winded explanations that just go on and on and on and on. So speak simply and directly. Number 5, she says, is exercise the power of I. To be assertive without coming across as hostile, use I statements. Make it a habit to say things like, I think, or I feel. Never use aggressive language or phrases like, you never, you always. These statements trigger other people, leave them frustrated, and they shut down the conversation. I statements allow you to be confident and assertive without alienating or eliminating other people. It was also interesting. She talks here about use I think or I feel. In a prior podcast, we learned about I believe. And the difference between using I believe and I think, words have meaning. Make sure you're using them in the proper context. Stay calm. Being assertive might make you feel excited, but excitement can sometimes come across as aggression. Learn to stay cool and calm when expressing yourself. It will make you more confident, allow other person to relax. Remember to breathe normally and be mindful of the body language and eye contact. Be present with each other. Calm mind, calm speech, calm action. It not only gives you confidence, but allows the other person to remain composed as well. I think that's always great in theory, but when you get in the situation, it becomes difficult to maintain our composure. So we need to practice. We need to think about it, come up with pre-staged triggers that may come up, and then come up with our pre-staged responses so that we have the ability to know what to say at the right time. Her 7th tip is to set boundaries. Boundaries are the rules and limits you create for yourself that help you decide what you will and won't. You don't want people to walk all over you, but you don't want people to think you're a bully either. So setting those boundaries will empower you to know when you need to say yes and when you need to say no. She says assertiveness is like any other skill. It takes practice and time to get it right. Keep working through each of these techniques, and soon you will feel more confident. So those are 7 habits from Lolly Daskell. Lolly Daskell, Lead from Within. I don't know, as I start to think about those and what we need to be thinking about, I think it's also important to start valuing yourself and your rights, learning how to voice your needs, being confident. Not easy to do. Another one here is acknowledge you can't control other people's behavior. Express yourself in a positive way. Be open to criticism and compliments. Learning to say no. There's a lot of suggestions and tips for us from other people on how to be more assertive. The question is not do we need to understand it, but how do we apply it when we are in practice? You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk about developing your strategy. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. The show is My Strategy. Really glad you could be with us here today. Our shows are live and on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Today we're talking about assertive people get what they want. We're talking about assertiveness as a practical communication skill, how to stand up for yourself, ways to communicate your position, being assertive when under stress, and gaining confidence. Still love to get your thoughts. You can send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. And you can be entered into our weekly giveaway, which includes a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness, and a Visa gift card. In this segment, I want to talk a little bit about a systematic approach to developing your strategy. And at My Strategy, we have a 5-step process. Number 1, it's awareness. Number 2 is assess and analyze. Number 3 is strategize and plan, implement your plan, and then support and evaluate. So from an awareness perspective, what are our visions, goals? What are we trying to achieve? And in our situation, could assertiveness help us? We need to really understand if it could help us. If it can't help us, don't focus on it. If it can, we proceed. The next step is assess and analyze. We need to look at our core situation and do some analysis to figure out, what are some of those steps we can take. So from a assertiveness perspective, are we assertive just right? Are we too passive? Are we aggressive, or are we passive-aggressive? It's important for us to understand exactly where we are in our current situation, our current state, because only by understanding our current situation, our current state, and this is true of any sort of transformation, can you then start to determine what are the steps that you need to take to get you to that future state, that future vision, the desired state. So we want to assess. Earlier in the show, we were talking about being passive, being aggressive, being passive-aggressive, being assertive. Where do you fit in that spectrum? Where do you fit? So once you've identified where you fit in that spectrum, it's important to start to strategize and plan. Look for some courses of actions. Look for habits that you can take up and commit to your daily routine. How do you go about identifying those? Well, I've got some ideas over here. We're going to pivot back to an article that I was getting some information from earlier, and this is from Mind Tools on how to be assertive. So when we're starting to think about our strategy and our plan, there's some tips here that they recommend. So things you can start doing in your daily life, if you're not assertive enough, is to use I statements. I want, I need, I feel, to convey basic assertions and get your point across firmly. For example, I feel strongly that we need to bring in a third party to mediate this disagreement. Now, that is different than you saying, I'll do whatever the group wants. Notice the difference in statements. One of them conveys an assertive communication technique. The other one is too passive. Empathy, always try to recognize and understand how the person views the situation. Then after taking their point of view into consideration, express what you need from them. For example, I understand that you're having trouble with Arlene, but this project needs to be completed by Friday. Let's all sit down and come up with a plan. That shows empathy. Passive-aggressive person might look at that and they might say, if they're having trouble with Arlene, they might, talk to Arlene, be friendly with her, but then behind her back, I can't believe Arlene's going to ruin our plans to come up with this project and get it completed by Friday. So there's lots of ways that we can handle situations. The question is, are we ready and are we prepared to give the right response in that current situation? Escalation, they says, if your first attempts at asserting yourself have been unsuccessful, you may need to escalate the matter further. This means by becoming firmer, though still polite and respectful, with the person who you are requesting help from, and may end in them telling you will do next if you still aren't satisfied, what you will do next if you aren't satisfied. I think that's a good one, because how many times have you talked to somebody, you felt you were being assertive, but your feeling of being assertive might not have been taken as assertive behavior at all. Or, perhaps you have so much respect for the person that you feel that you've heard them. Well, why not escalate it? Repeat it in a different way. Only then will you know, once you get a response and an answer, if they've heard you. Ask for more time. Here's an idea. Sometimes it's best not to say anything. You might be too emotional or might not know what you want yet. If this is the case, just be honest. Say, hey, can I have a few more minutes to compose my thoughts? Dave, your request has caught me off guard. I'll get back to you within the next half hour. That's a good one. I like that. You get caught off guard. There's an emergency. If you answer right away, you could answer and be upset. You could convey the wrong message. So ask for more time. That's a human thing to do. Next thing they say is you could change your verbs. Try using verbs that are more definitive and emphatic when you communicate. This will help you send a clear message and avoid sugarcoating your message so that people aren't left confused by what you mean. To do this, use verbs like will instead of could or should, want instead of need or choose, to instead of have to. It's amazing how these words matter, and depending on the words you use, those can change how people see you, how they think of you. I do give some examples. It says, I will be going on vacation next week, so I will need someone to cover my work. I want to go to this training course because I believe that it will help me to progress in my role and my career. And I'm choosing this option because I think it will prove to be more successful than the other options on the table. I also learned a little bit in a prior episode about could and should. What should you do or what could you do? Finally, they say, be a broken record. Prepare the message that you want to convey ahead of time. For example, I'd like you to work on the Clancy project. I cannot take on any more projects right now. I'll pay extra for you to do it. They give some other examples here. And I think all of these are good to go through and perhaps could give you some ideas of what you can pre-stage before you get into a situation where you need to be assertive. That way you have the sentences already put together. And that way when somebody comes to you, you can immediately know what to say. I think, unfortunately, a strategy doesn't always work. And in those cases, once you've implemented your strategy, and if it's not working, it's important to try and get support, also to evaluate why that strategy is not working. And from there, it's either a trusted advisor, a friend, or finding a coach or someone who can help you understanding why these are not working. You're listening to My Strategy. I am your host, John M. Hawkins, coming to you live from the BBM Network and Global Radio. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John M. Hawkins. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. We're very happy to be here with you today and glad you could join us. Today we're talking about assertive people and how they get what they want. We're talking about assertiveness as a practical communication skill, how to stand up for yourself, ways to communicate your position, being assertive when under stress, and gaining confidence. You have a little bit more time to get your email to us. You can send it to talk@johnmhawkins.com. That's talk@johnmhawkins.com. And if you do send it in, you get a chance to win our weekly giveaway, which is a copy of my latest book, Coach to Greatness, and also a Visa gift card. In case you missed this broadcast, you can go to iHeartRadio, Apple, iTunes. Or if you'd like to have something covered on the show, send an email to talk@johnmhawkins.com. Or give us a call at 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. That's 1-844-MY-STRATEGY. I've been talking today about assertiveness and how it is a social skill. Like any skill, it does require effective communication. When we are assertive, we try and communicate our wants, our needs. We try and set our boundaries and also our positions. But what is assertiveness and why is it so important? I think it's important for us to really understand exactly what is being assertive and how to be assertive, how that is perceived by others versus some other ways we can communicate. We learned also that being assertive can help us reduce stress. Learned that from the Mayo Clinic. Why we should be assertive. We also learned a little bit more about the nuance of assertiveness and how it is different from being passive, from being aggressive, or from being passive-aggressive. And I think it's important as we're working on our strategies to really think about our current situation, our current state. Where are we in regard to that spectrum? There's also things we can do to learn to become more assertive, but in some cases it's not always appropriate. In some cultures, in some organizations, it's not appropriate, and there are other ways and other skills we can develop. So know when it is and when it's not appropriate. We then learned some important habits to help you be more assertive. Really start to use simple speak, the power of I statements. We then went in and started developing your strategy. We talked about the assertive communication techniques and how we can all apply them. I think it comes down to, though, in order for us to change our bad habits, or not maybe bad habits, but the habits that aren't working so well, we need to break those habits, which means we need to be aware of patterns. We need to start to consciously prioritize and commit to our goals or intentions, because in doing so, that can help us increase our chances of realizing a goal and gaining clarity. Coaching is something that can help you get to where you want. It is that feedback loop, somebody who has seen others come up against a similar hurdle, and they know the path around it, over it, or under it, and they can help you with your strategy. I think it all comes down to we need to be accountable and make the change. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Appreciate you being here. My name is John M. Hawkins. The show is My Strategy. We're coming to you live from the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and we'll see you next time. Take care.